Hi guys, Rachael Cook, Doctor of Audiology at Applied Hearing Solutions in Phoenix, Arizona. And in today's video, I'm going to be telling you how white noise machines could be damaging your child's hearing. Coming up. If you have children, then you know that getting newborns, infants, and toddlers to not only fall asleep, but stay asleep can feel like a full-time job. You can deactivate every beeping alarm in your home, become a tiptoeing champion, and whisper so low that mice have a hard time hearing you. But if one door closes just a little too hard, boom, they're awake again. Most parents will try anything to avoid another unnecessary wake up, which is why the introduction of personal sound machines over the last few decades have been a parenting game changer. Sound machines, or white noise machines, play steady state noise that should be gentle enough to fall asleep to, but strong enough to mask external sounds that could awaken your child. In fact, several studies have proven the effectiveness of white noise machines to help improve sleep for children and adults alike, which is why you'll be hard-pressed to find even a single house with children that doesn't have one or more personal sound machines. However, with any type of noise, especially noise that's being used around babies, researchers strive to not only ensure that it's effective, but safe. Sound machines utilize all types of sound, including different colors of noise like white, pink, and brown noise, as well as soothing sounds like rainfall, ocean waves, and crackling fires. While these noises themselves are all inherently safe, it's the volume level and the placement distance of these sound machines that may be a problem. For instance, the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, or OSHA, has established a chart of permissible exposure limits for adults, which indicates how long you can be exposed to noise depending on the volume of that noise before you risk hearing loss. While this organization, among others, have established safe listening levels and durations for adults, little research has focused on loud noise exposure limits for infants and toddlers. This is likely because children generally are not yet a part of the workforce and are less likely to be frequenting concerts, riding motorcycles, firing guns, or working with power tools. Hopefully. However, just because their lives are a little bit less dynamic at this age doesn't mean that they're not exposed to unsafe levels of noise. In fact, researchers have started to ramp up their investigation of childhood noise hazards after the CDC produced research that suggested nearly 12 to 15% of children aged 6 to 19 have some level of noise-induced hearing loss. This means that nearly 5.2 million children and counting have suffered permanent and irreversible damage to their hearing from loud noise exposure that could have been entirely prevented. But before we find out if your child's sound machine could be loud enough to damage their hearing and what you can do to make sure that it's safe, please give this video a thumbs up to bring videos like these to a wider audience. And if you haven't yet already, make sure that you take a moment to hit that subscribe button with notification bell so that you never miss any one of our newly released videos. Now, according to the World Health Organization, adults can safely listen to sounds up to 75 decibels over an 8-hour period without risking damage to their hearing. For context, a refrigerator runs at about 40 decibels, an average level conversation occurs around 60 decibels, and a running vacuum is about 80 decibels. Now, you'll notice that this recommendation from the World Health Organization is much more conservative than that of OSHA, but I will be using those guidelines for that reason. This is because infants have smaller ear canals, boosting the volume of certain frequencies and making children even more vulnerable to the effects of loud noise. Just how much more vulnerable is hard to say, as research is limited in the area of safe exposure limits specifically for children, meaning that there are no hard and fast guidelines to follow. And while you may be thinking, surely there are limits put in place on products that are geared towards children so that they don't go beyond safe listening levels for babies. And unfortunately, that couldn't be further from the truth. One 2014 study published in the Official Journal of the American Academy of Pediatrics tested 14 different infant sleep machines at their full volume at 3 different distances. 30 centimeters was used to simulate a sound machine placed near the crib railing. 100 centimeters was used to reflect a sound machine placed just beside the crib. And 200 centimeters, or roughly 6 feet, was used to simulate a sound machine across the room, like on a changing table or dresser. This study found that at their full volume, all 14 sound machines introduced unsafe levels of noise when placed near the crib railing. A few of them were even unsafe at a bedside distance. Even assuming that most caregivers would not utilize these devices at their full volume, there's still a concern that these devices often come without instructions for their safe use. Additionally, several concerns have been raised about the chronic use of white noise by neurologists and scientists who study early auditory development. These experts argue that proper auditory development is dependent on hearing sounds of all different pitches, volumes, and patterns. Because white noise is a steady state sound with minimal variations, neuroscientists like April Benesic argue that in early life, continuous white noise exposure could be keeping the infant brain from doing its job to be able to decipher between sounds, which ultimately helps them develop language skills later in life. However, we won't jump to conclusions about this just yet, as researchers have only started evaluating this connection on animal models. At present, the benefit that both caregivers and children receive when sleeping with a sound machine are well worth their use, with attention to a few details. First, be aware of volume. If safe listening levels for an overnight period of about 8 hours are 75 decibels and below, you don't have to guess if you've said it right. You can measure it. Using an app such as the NIOSH Sound Level Meter, you can see real-time levels and averages for your sound machine. While the top number shows snippets of the sound level in real time, pressing play at the bottom allows you to look at the LEQ, which will give you a running average for the sound level. Be sure to place your phone near where your baby plans to sleep for the most accurate measurement, which should be around 70 decibels or below, just to be safe. Now, there are several sound machines on the market that do limit the output of these machines to under 75 decibels when positioned at an 18-inch distance, and I will have a couple of options linked for you in the description below. Second, ensure a safe distance between your child and the sound machine. Sound machines should never be in or even near cribs to avoid any accidental increases in the volume level. Sound machines should always be across the room from children and at a height where they cannot access it. If you're traveling or plan to move your sound machine for any reason, be sure to conduct a new sound level measurement, as the volume level will change the closer or further away it is positioned from the measurement point. Third, limit your child's white noise exposure to sleeping only. The suggested safe listening levels are calculated for an 8-hour duration. Any increase in time means that there will need to be a decrease in volume in order to stay within the safe exposure limits. Consider investing in a sound machine that has a sleep timer, or consider decreasing the volume on the sound machine after your child has fallen asleep. Sound machines should be off during awake periods to allow your child access to all of the sounds in their environment that will help their auditory system develop. And fourth, be sure to add sound variety and enrichment when your child is awake. Talking, reading, singing, and dancing are all integral parts of learning language and developing communication. Make sure to use their awake windows to widen their exposure to new and novel words and sounds, helping their development in the process. Following these 4 steps will ensure that your use of a white noise machine to help your child sleep is not only effective, but safe. That is it for this video. If you liked it, go ahead and give it a thumbs up and share it with someone that you feel could use it. And of course, if you haven't yet already, make sure you hit that subscribe button with notification bell so that you never miss any one of our newly released videos.